Hi there, Cathy Madeo back with a tutorial video on if you are feeling inflexible, why you should stop blaming your hamstrings. If your forward folds look something like this, your legs are straight, but your chest is really far away from your thighs. This video is for you, and I've got a lot of tips to help you unlock those hamstrings. Let's get started. It's really normal to feel tight in our hips and our leg muscles, especially with the sedentary lifestyle we have, or maybe you're a runner and things are designed when you run to help protect your joints, so those muscles and the fascia is going to get tight, right? But one of the myths is that it's only the hamstrings. And if we think about any time we forward fold, we're essentially compressing our belly or torso to our thighs. And there's a whole chain of muscles and lines and fascia that goes along with needing to be stretched. So oftentimes what we do is we target the hamstrings, we blame the hamstrings, and then we keep trying to stretch the hamstrings, but there might be other things involved. Now, with that being said, oftentimes the hamstrings are tight. And here's one big tip I want to give you. It's a common thought to think that when you forward fold and your legs are straight, that your hamstrings are stretching. But in fact, what's happening is you're not folding at the hip joint, you're folding at the waist, and your pelvis is going into what's called a posterior tilt. That means it goes backwards, it goes under. But for forward folds, we actually want an anterior tilt, a forward tilt of the pelvis. And here's why. When we take that posterior tilt and we add on flexion, so we bring the torso in towards the legs, that actually is shortening your hamstrings, the opposite direction that you want them to go in order to stretch the hamstrings, right? So we want to prioritize taking the anterior tilt over having straight legs and folding like this, because this is not getting you closer to being flexible in your legs, this is getting you farther away. So when we take the forward tilt, what will happen is your knees will have to bend. So the knees are going to bend, you'll take that forward tilt, and you see now I'm folding at the hip joint. My spine is actually straight. I'm not folding from here, folding at the hip joint. And you'll see that my torso now is getting very close to my thighs, and that my front core muscles are working now to compress my chest, my torso to my thighs, which is actually beginning to stretch and lengthen all the muscles in the back line of the body. So not just the hamstrings, but the glutes are getting stretched, the low back, the mid back region. So once all of this area starts to stretch and lengthen, it will begin to release the hamstrings so that the hamstrings begin to stretch and lengthen as well. And then what will happen over time, if you begin to practice your forward folds like this, what will happen is all of these muscles will start to lengthen and start to free up the hamstrings to be able to stretch. Now, the great thing about this tip is that it goes across all forward folds. So it's a principle of forward folding. You always want your pelvis in an anterior tilt. So if you need to modify by bending the knees, so be it, right? And I promise you that over time, working this way, things are going to start to unlock and release, and you'll finally find some freedom in those hamstrings. I want to just demo here real quick. If you're on the floor, so again, any forward fold, we could take our Janu Shirsasana. If you sit on the floor and you tend to be like this is taking that exact posterior tilt I talked about, and then try to stretch at your feet. Remember, nothing is actually stretching here. So if this looks like you on the floor, I want you to prop yourself up with a blanket. Why? Because that will actually help your pelvis tilt forward. Watch what happens the second I sit up on something. My pelvis has some freedom to be able to take that movement forward. And then from there, if you still can't reach your foot, you'll just take a strap of any kind, place it around the sole of your foot. And remember, we're prioritizing this anterior tilt over having a straight leg. So you might be looking a little bit more like this. This is what it might look like with straight legs. And again, this is across any type of forward fold in any of your yoga poses or stretching. I hope this video is useful to you. If it is, give me a like. Let me know in the comments how it's working for you. And of course, if you haven't already, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Namaste.